welcome to another episode of 31 Days of Horror for the year 2014. The event where I attempt to watch 31 horror movies I've never seen before in the 31 days of October. This time, I'll be talking about Bedevilled. And hopefully I don't get some copyright infringement notification because this music is playing. But Bedevilled. It is a 2010 film, Korean, directed by now these names I apologize, I'm going to butcher them. It's directed by Chul-soo Jang. I don't know Korean whatsoever, though I did have somebody try and teach me once. So Chul-soo, and it stars two lovely ladies, Yeong-hie and Seong-won. See, I'm butchering these. And it's one of those movies where if you don't look at it the right way, you may not think of it as horror. It's very much a drama. But I still include it. Why? Essentially, the beginning and the end of the film are sort of like horror bookends. And then the middle portion of it is very much drama, in which tells the story of why the two bookends, connect and how they form that horror. And yeah, it's one of those things. I believe it played Fantasia, if that means anything. They do play other things other than horror movies, of course, but yeah, it's the story. What is it? Well, essentially it's the story of two women. One is, she's from Seoul. She's, prim, proper city girl. She's, in a corporate financial job, but it's clear that she's not completely fulfilled. She's not entirely happy. And the beginning of the movie sort of goes through explaining her and giving you ideas of her character, and eventually leads to her breakdown, where her boss says she needs to go on a vacation. And it's during this time where there's some really good moments of realistic tension and horror, even though you can practically dismiss them as, yes, it just happens to be involving the situation that this person is actually in. It's not real moments of horror, but it's sort of the, horror of the real life. It's one of those things where if you look closely enough, you can find terrific, let's say, or terrorific, if you will, things even in your own daily life, if you sort of accentuate them or focus on them. Then yes, they can be really bad. Even if it's just, a case of, I don't know, mistaken identity or human error, a common mistake, an accident, things that could be, just happenstance. If you look upon them as being targeted, then they build up to a point of, you know what, there's something going on here. And this is sort of the impression you get at the beginning of the film. Through the middle of the film, essentially, this woman decides, you know, for her vacation, she's going to go back to this sort of it's an island that you can only get to by boat that runs out there maybe once a day. And it's a very small community, and I mean really small, like under 20 people type community. Semi-self-sufficient, but not really. That's, you know, is essentially completely cut off from the rest of the world. There's only one phone on the island, and like I said, only the one boat coming in and on and off. They don't even, which is weird for an island thing. None of them seem to have any boats. So at no point during their, you know, history of living on this island, who knows how many generations, nobody decided to make or buy a boat. Odd. I don't know. If they did, it must have crumbled and nobody knew how to take, you know, repair it or whatever. So it's I think it was called Mudo, something along the line. So Hae-won, who is the prim and proper girl, she decides she's going to go to this island, which she visited or lived at when she was a young girl, and became friends with a girl named Bok-nam. Now, Bok-nam still lives on the island and actually writes and phones Hae-won almost on a regular basis, to a point of annoyance, you know, asking for Hae-won to come visit, asking her for help, blah, 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 to the point where Hae-won, at the beginning of the film, is like, you know what, just leave me alone, piss off, right? But for some reason, she decides, you know what, I'm on this vacation, I'm actually going to go visit Bok-nam. And when she arrives at this island, she quickly notices that Bok-nam she's abused. Not only by her violent husband, but by the villagers in general. She's essentially the only young female on the island. She has a daughter, and the rest of the females on the island are all old, senior citizens, if you will, age, almost, definitely past their prime. And so Bok-nam is essentially the go-to type person for, you know, the few guys that are on this. I think there's an elderly gentleman who really doesn't do anything. He seems to be pretty much just able to stare out off into space and maybe eat. He doesn't talk or anything like that. And then there's, I guess, two brothers. One is married to Bok-nam, and the other one is... I don't know that he's retarded, but I think they explain it to the fact that he's essentially... He's been chewing on a local root which has medicinal properties, and essentially it's messed with his head. And so he, you know, is obviously, he's not all there. But these are essentially the only guys on this island. So all the elders look at them as being the greatest things ever because they're the only ones who are strong enough. You know, God forbid any of the women actually decided to do any of the real work. They're constantly complaining about, oh my gosh, I wish we had a man here to do this. Oh my gosh, I wish we had a man here to do this. So they're very old school in their thinking that, you know, if it has to involve any type of manual labor or strength or is any bit of difficulty, then a man is needed to do that type of thing. Even though they do it, you know, they're constantly out in the fields picking the potatoes and doing all that kind of stuff. In fact, they constantly are ridiculing and making Bok-nam do a lot more work. And there's so many times where her husband is constantly, he's just laying around doing nothing, and he's, you know, abusing her left, right, and center, you know, be it physically, sexually, or you know, mentally and verbally, and, you know, like telling her go out and get the honey, like, because he's, you know, he's not able to for some reason. And one of the main reasons why he will send her off to do stuff is because he regularly has I'm guessing she was a prostitute from the mainland, come for sex. And it's not even in secret. See, Bok-nam knows all about this, and there's even a scene where he's having sex with her, and Bok-nam is outside on the porch stuffing her face, clearly, you know, not necessarily accepting of it, but feeling that she has, there's nothing she can do about it. And so you have this long section, like essentially most of the film, where it's dealing with all, you know, setting up all these scenes of abuse and dealing with, you know, the rural life, and having Hae-woon develop a relationship with Bok-nam's daughter. And it's, you know, through that, and reconnecting with Bok-nam to a certain degree as well, and remembering their friendship from when they were little, so there's a lot of flashbacks. And eventually it gets to the point where Bok-nam thinks that her husband is messing around with her daughter, and there's a big confrontation. She tries to leave the island, and she's caught, and some bad stuff happens. Eventually Bok-nam snaps, and this is where the secondary portion of horror happens, and that's the end of the film, where Bok-nam goes on a revenge killing spree. And I'll leave it at that. I'll just say it is well worth the wait. For those of you like myself, who was figuring, you know, I'm looking at this picture and going, okay, it's horror. I'm reading, you know, on the back here, on the back of the DVD, it says brutally intense, one of the standout films of 2010, one hell of a revenge flick. And, you know, after I've already seen this first part where I'm like, it's very, you know, it's a very good horror setup, and it's suspenseful, and there's tension, I'm like, okay, this is going to be an interesting movie. And then I have to sit through, what's the running time on this? It's 150 minutes. So almost 2 hours, of which the beginning portion is maybe 15 minutes. So you got 100 hours or 100 minutes. And I'd say the last portion is maybe, I don't know, maybe half an hour. So 70 minutes worth of this film is all this drama. And and it's slow. It's regularly, every day, you're just watching it and you're going through it. And if not for the fact that the performances from these girls are bang on, they are so good. And well, the guys too. I mean, everybody in this film is believable. You think the stuff is actually happening, and there's some great shots, absolutely great shots, where there's suggestions of what might be happening, but there's no real reveal. And yeah, there's lots of nudity too. There's plenty of nudity. Like I said, there's rape and prostitution going on. So there's plenty of scenes of sexual conduct. So if that's your thing, I mean, it's there. But it's done in the sense that it's shown to do, you know, to actually degrade, not because, you know, like it's well, yeah, no, it's not an exploitation flick. It's not like it's you know, like a grindhouse exploitation flick from the 70s. It has a lot of the aspects of those, but because of the way it's presented, it's meant to degrade the character and not the actual person who's playing them, or women in general. It's meant to show the pain and everything that this, you know, Bok-nam is going through. And yeah, it's so well done that as much as I would have liked to have had more of this you know, horror and terror and suspense happening through that middle portion that is so long. I think it's because it's a good watch through that drama period, that it's okay. You feel invested and you want to find out what's happening, and you know, like, if you hadn't bought it on DVD and you hadn't seen the trailers or something, maybe then, you know what, the trailer probably gives away too much. Don't watch the trailer. I haven't seen it, but I'm guessing there's going to be too much in there. But it's one of those things where I'm reading, I know it's a revenge flick, so I'm going, okay, I'm waiting to see what happens. But you know what? The drama, the slow portion in the middle is so long that I almost wondered if this payoff was going to happen. I'm not going to lie, I was skeptical while watching this film because it went on for so long. I still enjoyed it, but because I expected something else going in, man, it was taxing. And but eventually it gets to the end, and you know, the revenge takes place. Now, it's not uber duper gory, it's not uber duper graphic, it's not crazy where, you know, she's going in there and ripping, you know, the guy's balls off and eating them or anything like that. It's not that kind of a movie, clearly, from this middle portion that is so dramatic. But it does take place. There is some carnage going on, and there's some blood. But it's so justified. It's one of those revenge things where you're like, yeah! Kill that bitch. I may have said that when I was watching it. I'm not lying. But yeah, it's weird because it feels like three separate little movies. Like, you got the first portion, which has this, you know, leads into this ominous tone, which never really takes place. Then you got this middle section, which is sort of it's a family picture, if you will. Not as a family-friendly picture, but a film about family and dysfunction and old school ways of thinking, and how they don't mesh with today's society, and how, you know, it's a very patriarchal type society there. But even though it's really the old women who are controlling things, because they determine, you know, what's going on. They're the kind of the ones who say, even though they ask the men to do stuff, the guys obviously agree, not a problem. Yes, I will fix your door. Yes, I will fix your roof. Blah, 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 blah. But the women have no problem in asking. They have no problem, and they expect it to be done either way. And it's weird. It's this weird relationship of how, you know, I'll do my job, you do your job, and that's how we coexist, right? It's not through communication or anything like that. And it's sort of that story about how that plays out, and then eventually it just gets to the end and you're like, and we're going serial killer type thing going on here. And it's, yeah, and then it takes a little bit of a twist at the end. Yeah, it saves it till the end to give you that little added twist, and you're just like, what? Wow, okay. I don't know what kind of movie this guy was setting out to make, but he clearly had a few ideas in his head. So with that being said, would I recommend Bedevilled? Yes, but only to certain people. If your type of horror that you're really into is ghost stories, if you're into The Ring or what am I thinking? The Grudge, Pulse, whatever, any of those films like that, then no, there's no ghost story. It's not that scary. It's not a scary movie. If you're into the serial killers, the Halloweens, the Friday the 13th, Leprechaun, Nightmare on Elm Street, again, this isn't your thing. If you're into a real life, everyday horror, if you're into revenge flicks, this is more along your, you know, your lines. If you like I don't know, I'm trying to think. I can't even think of one right now, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre would almost be it, but it's closer to the serial killer type thing than this, but it does have that real life grungy aspect to it. So, but yeah, I would not compare this to Texas Chainsaw Massacre at all. They're very, very different films. And my foot just fell asleep. Oh, don't you hate that? Oh my god. Oh, I can't stand up for a bit, that's for sure. Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. I really enjoyed it. Now that I've seen it on a whole, when I go back to watch it again eventually, I'll know what to expect, and I think that'll give me a very different feel for the film. It won't be so much waiting and anticipating this revenge portion. It'll be more about watching just the story unfold, and that's really what this is about. It's watching the story unfold. It's hard to say. It's a revenge flick. So if it's an I Spit on Your Grave or something like that. It's in that category technically, but an I Spit on Your Grave is probably closer to a Friday the 13th than this is. So don't go in expecting uber kills and crazy stuff like that. It's not like that. This is more, think about what might happen if it was you. If something was going on and you eventually just decided, you know what, you weren't going to take it anymore and snapped. So that is Bedevilled, 2010 fic. It's available on DVD. This one's from which is Mongrel, I believe. Yes, Mongrel Media. Don't know who distributed it in the U.S., but I'm sure it has. It has to have. It's a Korean flick. They're even their lower budget films look like our medium budget films, so it looks good. And like I said, everything about it is stylistically good. So if it feels like something you want to check out and you don't mind, a foreign Korean film with subtitles and all that kind of stuff, give it a shot, and I don't know, let me know what you think. If you've seen it before, post down below, and I'd love to hear what you thought of the film. Like I said, it's not for everybody. Till next video, guys. Take care. Have a good one. Music kind of gives you an idea of what the middle of the film's like.